Welcome back to the FixedOps Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine. Today's segment is going to be so incredible. We are talking about AI marketing strategies to boost engagement and profitability. Ted, I'm really excited about this panel.
I am as well, Sarah. We've got our good friends from Affinitiv here today. Jeff Geary and Joey Wheeler are here on behalf of Affinitiv, and also want to welcome the retail group to the panel. Don Andres, the author of the new book, Why Service Departments Fail to Grow, is here. Also, he owns Auto SCT Consulting and Training. Sean Kingery is here from the Kaiser Automotive Group. And of course, Sarah Vantine and myself, Ted Ings from the FixedOps Roundtable. Everybody, welcome to the panel. No better time than now. This is very top of mind and exciting to get into this. So, Jeff, if it's okay, let me come to you first, kind of to set the stage, define the big picture. You know, technology is changing very quickly and rapidly. We're seeing that at the dealership level. We're hearing about things that are coming. So, tell us what you mean when we reference AI marketing strategies.
Certainly. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Excited to be here. Nice to meet everyone on the panel. So AI, artificial intelligence, it's a big hot term right now, not just in automotive, but across most industries at this point. And in its simplest form, it's just a broad term that encompasses all of the different technologies that enable machines to mimic human intelligence, right? So most people tend to associate AI with what are called generative models. So those are the things that create text, create images, create videos on behalf of humans. However, AI also includes some more focused applications, specifically machine learning, also known as ML, which is where we at Affinitiv are really concentrating our efforts. Machine learning models are trained on large data sets that ultimately look for patterns in that data and try to predict outcomes, right? So in our case, we can use, and we do use ML to help dealerships optimize their marketing strategies. And by leveraging this ML, we're able to create more effective audience segmentation through the use of predictive propensity models that score customers across their life cycle, from sales to service, ultimately identifying potential buyers or customers who are in need of specific types of services. Additionally, we use these models to maximize traffic to the service bays during off-peak hours, ensuring that our clients can maintain a steady flow of business throughout the day.
Joey, this is really becoming a science. It already is a science, okay? And you've harnessed AI to do all this. Can you give us some specific examples for the audience watching today, the dealers, fixed ops directors, service directors, maybe how this would impact what they do?
Sure, absolutely. Like Jeff mentioned, we're taking a very focused approach, which I think is a smart way to go at this. AI and ML can pull you in a lot of different directions. So we're trying to apply that focus on our side. I think some good specific examples kind of break down into three different categories for us anyways. First being what we call natural language processing, which is really where we're looking at what we're seeing and the data we're receiving through the dealer's DMS and potentially other channels, and using that to make inferences or intelligent decisions around that. So one way we might do that now, and we do today, is to fill some of the gaps in dealership process. I think we all know that that's a reality of the world that we live in. So, for example, we might look at RO data and say, okay, the advisor didn't necessarily use the right op code that we were looking for to indicate that a decline occurred, but there's enough data within that natural language processing can look at that overall interaction and say, we are reasonably sure that a decline did occur here, which means that the dealer is not going to miss out on that opportunity because of that gap in process. So we're capturing on some of that and helping to fill some of those gaps. That's kind of the first area. The second, I think, is some of the predictive actions that Jeff mentioned. We have a wealth of data from the dealers that are coming in as part of our service, and that allows us to make these predictive models that can identify key points in a consumer's decision-making workflow or path. So that might be something like propensity for needing service or propensity for purchasing a new vehicle. or it might even be something more specific around like needing tires, let's say. That data set can help us make those decisions. And as a result, we can build marketing that's highly targeted and highly personalized for those specific actions that we're looking for the consumer to take, and make sure we get them at the right time in that decision-making flow. The last, I think, is probably the one that a lot of people are probably most excited about, and that's maximizing profitability. I think everybody likes to hear that term for sure. And there's a couple ways that I think we're starting to think about that, and some that we're actually doing today. So as Jeff mentioned, what we call our capacity IQ is our ability to look at gaps in a dealer's service schedule to try to recapture on business that potentially is going to be lost. If that bay is available and service is not scheduled, that's not good for the dealer. So what we're able to do is start to look at trends in some of those time frames and time slots, and incentivize the consumer to say, hey, we can get you in tomorrow, or maybe in 2 weeks when we know there's a gap in that booking, and both satisfy the dealer's need to get them into the bay, and then also help the consumer out with perhaps a small discount to incentivize them to do that. So those are a couple categories where I think we're putting on some of our attention.
This is fascinating, Joey, especially that predictive part. We're hearing a little bit about that now at the roundtable. Sean, I want to come to you because in another month or month and a half, Sean, we're going to have something that's known as tire season. Okay, we're starting to come into that on the FixedOps side. Sean, how have you been thinking about leveraging, this kind of technology at the store level, and have you started to find ways to incorporate it?
Well, let me take one quick step back, if you allow me, Ted. At the end of 2023, you said, as we did a roundtable, whatever the theme was then, what do you think in 2024? And my comment was, if you don't know what the term fixed absorption means, you're going to miss out in 2024. And as sales and variable fell off, I think that became very evident, and I think it is. And based on the panels that we've done and looking at what you have based here, if you don't know what AI is, I think AI needs to be the word for 2025. It seems to be the new one. Mobile service came through, and I think AI and the one thing I think I can't stress enough, and this is for Jeff and Joey, and hopefully Don doesn't throw a brick down on my head here. Guys, you have to understand that at the end of the day, we're service managers, parts managers, body shop managers, we're fixed ops guys, okay? We are not marketing people. And Ted, we've talked about this a lot during a lot of different panels. Guys, we aren't marketing specialists. We don't know. Only thing we really know generally is what the rep comes in and tells us to do, being the OEM rep, which, by the way, generally benefits them. It doesn't necessarily benefit the dealer. And as Jeff and Joey are going through the comments here, I'm already taking notes, by the way. I've already got probably 10 of them here. I'm going to use time slot optimization. You can coin that if you want to, Joey, okay? Guys, we as dealers have tried for years to figure out how to get people in the afternoons, okay? I literally was in a 20-group meeting a month and a half ago in Minneapolis, and we talked 2.5 hours about scheduling in the afternoons and how do we optimize a BDC, because I'm the biggest I love BDCs. Sarah and I are definitely on the same page on BDCs. Even in-house BDCs, outsourcing BDCs, we fail at optimizing afternoons. We always have, we always do. You walk through at 2:30, you can throw a racquetball through the shop and not hit anybody. If you guys can figure out that, you got this whole thing figured out, okay? And if AI is the solution, and listen, I openly admitted to Ted and I talk a lot on the weekends, I'm behind on AI. I admit I'm behind on AI. I got burned on AI in a previous life here a little while ago on something that I went too deep in, and I admit that I did it. But, Ted, you asked, how do I see this? And if you can't tell my passion about it, if there's a solution to AI to figure out how to get a client in to optimize bay utilization, time slot optimization, whatever you want to call it, guys, it's a no-brainer. That you could sell that to a dead guy, as I love to say, because we struggle with it. And guys, we aren't the solution in the service department. We know how to manage people usually. We know how to manage hours. We know how to manage profit, I think, better now than ever. 2024 proved that. But as far as marketing, we aren't the ticket.
Sarah, this sounds like a perfect segue over to you with some of the things that Sean was mentioning.
Well, and Sean's spot on. So I'm glad he brought up the BDC element with this conversation, because the BDC team with the service department historically has been responsible to answer the phones. But we're seeing this shift where the BDC is more involved in the marketing and being that person to really monitor where the customer is in the life cycle And so a BDC director or a BDC manager really has to take into account all of those pieces when they're putting their team on the phones or texting or doing email campaigns, whatever the communication method. But the biggest piece that I think is most interesting about this conversation is the consumer or the customer on the other end of this marketing, because I'm definitely that consumer that knows and expects that I'm going to get some kind of discount if I just wait. And I know I can add to cart or I can get on the website and I'll linger there and then I'll bounce off and I'll just wait and I'll see what comes into my inbox or what messages come across, because I mean, that's the reality of today's business. We all are engaging with Amazon, all kinds of different virtual shopping mechanisms. And customers are doing that now with scheduling their service appointments and interacting with the dealership. And so if you can leverage those behaviors that are already happening, that's what the customer expects today. That's good customer service, is using AI to give them the right message when they want to receive it. Now they're not having to do the heavy lifting and contact you. They can sit back and wait for the right time for them, and they expect it.
Wow. Don, there's a lot happening in our industry, and
Yeah.
a lot to stay in touch with.
Well, it's exciting because from an AI standpoint, former general manager, we talked about finding that time when the customer's in the market on the variable side, but not necessarily seeing any value on the service side. And yet it's true, there's more customer engagement happening on the service side, where customers are declining additional needed services on a particular service visit. And so with two things happening, one, our marketing, and Sean, you brought up a great point. I will tell you that we have retention companies that we signed up at the beginning of the year and let them do their thing. And then we invariably would do some coupons that we'd throw out quarterly and try to entice some people in. We never hit them at a time when they needed tires, at a time when they were thinking about it. And so to leverage AI, this ability to understand what's happening in social media with a particular client and know that optimal time to send them a message about the fact that we're priced right and we have the availability and the convenience, which is really the secret. You know, you bring up a point about the afternoons. There are so many people that might start early and get to work at 6 in the morning, and they're done at 2:30 in the afternoon. It might be an ideal time to drop the vehicle off on the way home from work, leave it for the next day, and here you've got the time to be able to engage with them, which again puts vehicles in bay. So I love the fact that AI is finally here and finally involved, and we can allow it to do what it does really, really well, and that's all that predictive chemistry, right? As far as decline services, Joe, you could not have hit a better subject. It's still in our industry, maybe 30-35% approval ratings. Sean, is that still about that number?
And you may be even strong at that number, Don.
What's that?
You may be even strong at that number, quite frankly.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
And so this idea of having this opportunity to reach back out, loop them back in, and you're right, Sarah, if it requires a discount to get that done, it's sold work coming back in. That really great, easy flow of work that comes in, doesn't require additional diagnosis. The customer wins. The advisor, it's an easy deal, but of course, the biggest part is the technician. The technician being able to get some work that is already sold, doesn't delay anything, that can come in, they can get it done. It's the non-diagnostic work that just needs to actually get done. You really hit, I think, the gold standard for understanding where that boost in net profits for a service department is. It's all of those initiatives and taking full advantage of AI.
Don, thank you. And if I could follow up with Sean Kingery. Sean, there was a panel not long ago that we did with Affinitiv that talked about marketing, different forms of marketing for different generations, okay? You know, going back long ago to the direct mail and then, you know, moving it up to where we are today. Sean, this is really not just this is really now, okay, what's happening and into the future. And for a retailer, such as yourself or any retailer, they need to be aware of this.
They do. And again, we have to step out of the snail mail. And yes, snail mail still works, but at a 2% hit rate or a 2% response rate, guys, you're wasting money. I'm going to use what Don just talked about. You would think with the interaction between the car and the OEMs nowadays, why do we want to send tire mailers to somebody who has 10,000 miles on their car? We know an average car is good. We know what tires on the car. We know how many miles are on the car, by the way. We know exactly how many miles that tire is going to last. Just historical data will tell you that tire on that van is going to last 24,000 miles. We should be hitting them up at 22, but we don't. We send blanket mails out to people who aren't in the market, and we know they're not in the market. Or we send mail out to people that, what's the worst thing? You send a coupon to somebody, then they're done that, where they had a huge service work done. And by the way, now you're sending them a 10% off coupon after they just paid their bill for $4,000. And guys, it's a no-win, because no matter what you do, you should have known. And by the way, now you're gonna stick at the policy, because you're gonna honor that coupon at a later time.
So Jeff, I think Sean teed you up real well for the next question. Why do you think it's so important that dealers now look to leverage this intelligence in the service communications, as Sean mentioned?
I think I'm going to pass this one to Joey. This is a little bit more in his wheelhouse here.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
sure. I mean, I think it's important because, as Sean mentioned, the word of the year, perhaps the last 2 years maybe, is AI. And I think that is indicative of the fact that we're at an inflection point with this technology. And any dealers that aren't attempting to start to adopt some of this technology are missing out on a competitive advantage. And I think that's the fact of the matter. If you're not getting into these technologies and kind of branching out into some of this new territory, someone up the street quite possibly is, and they're going to have that competitive advantage that you do not have. So I think the fact of the matter is you have to stay competitive, and this is part of that landscape. Some of those things we've already touched on, the predictive models, like if you're leveraging those, you can get those communications out at exactly that right time, and know based on the data what we're looking at. So I think it's just maintaining your competitive advantage and extending it.
I like it. And dealers like that competitive advantage. All right, Jeff, let me come to you on this one. Okay. How about the results? Okay. What has Affinitiv seen, since developing? You must have put a lot of time into developing and adopting this type of technology. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we absolutely have, Ted. The results have been impressive, to say the least. Just in the last 5 years alone, just to give some context, we've grown our machine learning suite to nearly 20 distinct models that span from variable to fixed ops across all different types of services that customers may be in the market for. So it's really allowed dealers the opportunity to be very hyper targeted in their audiences when they send specific types of messages. And all of these are available for our clients to use. One standout example that I can think of is something we've done with an advanced coupon segmentation strategy. So we've helped some of our major clients who were struggling with part and accessory sales by leveraging one of our predictive models. So we all know that a key challenge in marketing is finding that delicate balance between presenting discounts that are enticing enough to motivate a customer to come in and to take action without sacrificing too much of your profits, right? So by employing one of our machine learning models that specifically looks at customers and scores them on their propensity to be in the market for accessories for their vehicle, we implemented this differentiated offer strategy. And in this strategy, we offered less aggressive, in some cases, no discount to the customers who were of the highest propensity to be in the market, since we already know there's a pretty low bar that we have to cross to get them to come in. But then we send that aggressive discount to the customers who may not have as high of a propensity score as some others. And this approach was highly successful for the exposed group. We saw a 25% lift in accessory sales for those customers compared to customers who, or dealers, excuse me, who just leverage kind of like that spray and pray, one size fits all strategy. Additionally, just to add to Joey's commentary on our declined repairs model, he spoke through the issues that we face when the correct op code may not be used on that RO, and it fails to trigger that communication and that follow-up to that customer. So with this new functionality that he mentioned, we're actually identifying about 70% more declined ROs with that ML approach, which in turn allows us to effectively target those customers and send that follow-up communication and keep that conversation going between the customer and the dealership. And we've seen some pretty sizable results with those strategies.
Well, fascinating stuff, everybody. Joey, there's clearly plenty of opportunity here, but it's going to evolve. How do you see it evolving, and what's next for leveraging AI at Affinitiv? Clearly, the leader, with customer lifecycle management.
This is my favorite part to talk about, so I'm glad you asked this question. I mean, I think there's a lot of really exciting stuff that's on the horizon. A few things that we are already working on and considering for future development and our roadmap is, first of all, dynamic personalized video. We know that consumers respond to highly personalized content, and personalized video is one of those things that, from a people power perspective, the investment is too high. If I want to send a personalized video to a large collection of consumers, that's not going to happen by having someone internally create individual videos. So AI allows us to define that script and what we're trying to achieve there, but then bring in all of that dynamic consumer data. And what we end up with is a video, let's say, that's completely customized to Joey Wheeler. I'm able to have my vehicle in there, all of my details. Maybe it's a sales piece and it's showing me my current vehicle and the new vehicle that I could get into. And it's bringing all of that data together into this really dynamic output for the consumer. So that's one we're really excited about. Also, offer optimization. Jeff touched on this. I think this is going to be huge. This really extends on some of the proof of concept in that case study that he mentioned for the accessories, extending that same methodology across the board. So really looking at data and understanding what potential offer is required to get Joey Wheeler in the door versus, say, Jeff Geary. I might be the type of consumer that only needs a 5% discount. Jeff might need a 20% discount to get in the door. And that allows us to define that range that a dealer is comfortable with putting out there for a particular touch point, but then not giving it all up. We're able to be more conservative and thoughtful. And when we extend those discounts to consumer based on that data that we're seeing, which makes it much the benefit to the dealer is huge. They're just not leaving as much on the table, but they're still getting the advantage of putting those discounts out there, which is great. The last one I want to mention is consumer sentiment. One of our solutions is a two-way texting tool. Obviously, there's a lot of data in terms of the conversations between the service department, let's say, and the consumer. This could also be sales, but we're starting to look at all of that data and starting to extrapolate consumer sentiment so that we can identify historically, based on previous conversations that might have happened, this is starting to go south, let's say. So let's say this is a service interaction and we're seeing this conversation starting to go south. We can tell that the consumer is frustrated. This is going to be a customer service issue. We can provide that feedback directly to the advisor and maybe even escalate that up to a service advisor or director or something like that can step in and say, okay, let me help with this situation before it becomes an issue, as opposed to trying to chase it after the fact. So lots of really neat stuff coming on the horizon. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of some of the stuff that we can do.
So Sean and Sarah and Don, we've been on a lot of FixedOps roundtables over the years, Sarah and Sean especially, okay? And we've had a lot of topics. We've never gone this deep with AI, I think, the way we are today, Sean, okay? This is probably, the most I have heard. So Sean, let me come to you first. What do you see as the greatest opportunity at the dealership level to impact fixed ops and fixed operations marketing, your strategies, and what kind of help would you need from a partner like Affinitiv in developing this space out?
I think the first thing with AI obviously is personnel. Anything that eliminates the personnel needs, which is what we're all facing. Okay, finding the work balance is really tough. I can't underestimate enough, and I think Don hit on it a little bit, the lost sales thing. We can go into filling slots in the afternoon. There is not a dealer. There's a dealer, any dealer that goes on one of Ted's roundtables and says, hey, we do a great job at lost sales, is probably not telling you the truth. We all are horrible at it. Okay, we don't do it. It's an afterthought. We don't do it. But to Don's point, there's a waterfall effect that happens when you bring in when the client's left and the tech didn't get the job. That's a downside. Okay, when that job comes back in, to Don's point, they don't have to reinspect it. It's already pre-sold. He gets his pound his chest a little bit, but the next car that comes in, he's liable to do a better inspection on it because he understood the inspection got sold. It may not have been that day, and we can do a better job with TOs and objection handling and that kind of stuff and making sure it didn't leave. But once it's gone, it's gone. And I don't know that I can stress to Affinitiv enough how much, a 20% discount, I'll take 80%, better 0% any day of the week and twice tomorrow, guys. If it's not here, it didn't happen. It's gone. It's zero. I have zero right now. I can't put it in the cash drawer. I can't cash it. I can't close it. You bring that back in, that's 100% revenue because no matter what it is, it's something I didn't have before.
Sean, you could almost, retitle some of this panel as the client services, because this really puts the client services in a whole new perspective. Sarah, your thoughts. I know you've been on the front lines as well for a long time.
I'm going to pivot a little bit because I loved what Joey was talking about a minute ago about the customer behaviors and some of the pieces that you see. I'm going to reference a report, and this report, by the way, I had in my BDCs. It's something that I still give out to BDC directors if they want it. But it was something called an opportunity report. And this would be something that Affinitiv, like with AI, you could absolutely leverage because it's so much data to understand like what's going on in my service department and what are the key points that a customer really wants me to deliver on. And what I would track with this report was if a customer had any sort of issue, what was the root of that issue? And to take it even further, not only would we track that, but we would track the corresponding week in the month that it occurred. And what you could use that data with is you could correlate, okay, maybe my shop foreman was on vacation in week 2 of the month. Did we see some inefficiencies with time happen when that happened? And if so, okay, we saw a rise in complaints on the amount of time it took for service. Well, now as a service director and a BDC director, we can look at things like that with our team scheduling and go, okay, how do we prevent this from happening in the future where our customer isn't impacted? And so this was a living, breathing document, but I can imagine using AI to look at all of that data collectively and not have to do all of that heavy lifting where I was manually importing it into Excel based on phone calls that were happening in the rooftop. And by the way, with my previous organization, 40,000 something phone calls a month trying to import like information like that was just brain damage. But having something that you can leverage the technology to do that heavy lifting for you, and then you have that actionable intelligence that you can make business decisions on. You can decide, all right, if time is an issue, maybe I don't offer those, time slot type appointments because I'm going to overwork my shop and create more time issues. If it's things like, whatever the issue is, you can address it with the data and then do your marketing around the places where your business is really succeeding.
Great insight, Sarah. Wow. Don, what do you say?
Well, I'm going to touch on one point. Sean is just so brilliant. It's hilarious how you want to improve the quality of your multi-point inspection, which, by the way, is the secret sauce to growing your service department, the quality of the multi-point inspection. You just start sending them sold work back, and they value now the effort that even though that day they didn't close that deal. So I love that point. I think one of the things I'd love to see happen is customers don't know vehicles, right? So beyond oil changes, tire rotations, and maybe a brake job, when we start explaining some of these needed additional services, we have to engage. We have to have time with them, right? With AI today, this ability to create some reels, for no better term, where we've proposed a fuel service on a vehicle that needs it, and the customer's declined it. And now suddenly we have the ability to send them a 30-second or 10-second reel that talks about the value of fuel service on a vehicle. Now Now that's really marketing of not just simply an offering a discount, but why we're doing the service. I can tell you that a service advisor that's got a good enough relationship with a customer and says to them, hey, there's a couple of things we got to get done. And here's why we need to get those accomplished. Almost every time the customer goes, well, yeah, let's go ahead and get it done. Let's get it done. Why? Because now I understand. And so if there's something for the future that AI could be looking at, is this ability to create some of this educational simple reels, right? That's what everybody watches today, and hit them at a time when they have just declined that service. Boy, that'd be some powerful stuff.
This is a powerful panel. Okay. We didn't have enough time to get through everything. I'm going to ask you all, and by the way, great conversation. Wow. I'm going to ask you all to come back on the next roundtable and take this up another few notches, if it's okay. Jeff and Joey from Affinitiv. I want to thank Sarah Van Tine, Don Andres, Sean Kingery for being on the panel today. Everybody, if you want to get your dealership into the current mode where you need to be in marketing and where this is all headed, you have to speak to Affinitiv. The Affinitiv team is available. Go to affinitiv.com. I know Jeff and Joey are both active on social media, as is the rest of the team. Reach out to affinitiv.com, everybody. Take the next step, and they are clearly the leader in the field. Jeff and Joey, first time on the roundtable for both of you. Thank you for all you do for industry. Very grateful to have you here. Everybody, the Affinitiv panel here today with us at the FixedOps Roundtable.